Welcome back to another episode of the EventBuzz podcast presented by Purplepass. I'm your host, Savannah McIntosh, and I'm here with Channing Muller of DCM Communications. With more than 15 years in the event industry, alongside a career in marketing and communications in corporate America, Channing understands events and sees the business solutions most creative professionals need to thrive. As a marketing and sales with full agency offerings, she helps solopreneurs and small business owners focus on the right marketing tactics for their business and executes them efficiently and effectively while ensuring all efforts tie back to profitable sales strategy. Channing has become an expert in hot topics like marketing, advertising, business development, PR, and crisis communications, to name a few. Hi, Channing. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on and speaking with us today. How are you doing?
Oh, absolutely. I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. Always excited to talk about events and marketing.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. Well, I already let the listeners know a little bit about you at the beginning of the show, but I would like to learn more about your event experience or experience in that industry and kind of how you got your start.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually fell into the event industry, kind of how I fell into entrepreneurship as well. It's not part of my original plans, but when I was graduating college from the fantastic University of Miami, I was looking for jobs in magazines and in publishing. And as I started doing that, one of the ones that came up was BizBash.
Oh.
And there was an assistant editor position because back then the Florida office was a franchise. And so they had an assistant editor position, and I looked at the description and I was like, well, I know absolutely nothing about events, but I know a lot about how to pull together a magazine and write stories. So I interviewed and I talked to them, and all the things that were there, I'm like, yeah, I can do this. And being a journalist at the time, I knew how to ask 10,000 questions. So if I needed to understand something about events, which was an industry I didn't know, I knew the resources on how to do it, right? I've never had a problem raising my hand and being like, excuse me, I don't understand this. Can you please explain?
Exactly.
So I ended up, thankfully, like they saw potential in my very green but very driven self. And I'll never forget the first event I went to was in Miami at the Moore building, and it was produced by Barton G. And I walked in there and I saw all the things and I was like, oh my God, you are my people. Yes. Like it was so creative, and it was using that creativity in such a different way than I had been using my brain. Like I could come up with all the words and all the thoughts and all the questions and all the ideas, but the way that people were able to turn the words into visual representations through catering and design and rentals and experience, like it was just so cool. And so I, got to know more and more people. I worked in Miami for 3.5 years. I was with BizBash, and I covered also multiple Super Bowls because we covered the whole state of Florida. So I literally spent the beginning of my career just asking everybody at these really big brands and really small nonprofits all the questions about how do you do your event successfully, right? What are the barometers for this? Where do you get your inspiration? And I learned so much about those professionals and really just came to respect them even more because they did things in such a different way than I was able to, right? They thought differently. So I got to learn more about that. Then fast forward, I went to DC, started looking at other areas of rounding out kind of my communications experience, worked in marketing, did some PR, worked in advertising sales. And throughout that whole time, I had BizBash ask me when I got to DC, they're like, hey, do you want to cover events here locally? Yes, please. Like meet more people, see things in a totally different market because you can imagine DC and Miami very much not the same.
Yeah, I know.
And the way, like the way that events have to be done and how trends kind of move around the country was really different. And so I spent another 7 years doing that and just really getting to know the market and getting to know the major players that both would come in town as well as the production houses and planners that were there. And I fell in love with it all over again. And so when I started my company originally as a side hustle. One day there could be a business in here, but we don't know what that day is yet. I decided to then focus on the event industry, as I had a lot of experience in marketing, which is what I kind of done with the corporate America path, learning about marketing and sales and trying to get some very large companies with much larger marketing budgets than what my clients have now. And I found a way that like, okay, I know a lot about marketing and sales and some PRs thrown in there for select people. I was like, and I know what these event companies are capable of doing, and their marketing just does not match up with what I know they actually deliver. So I really started focusing on providing those marketing services to event professionals and making sure that both the digital aspects of their business, as well as all of the language and the copy they were using, really demonstrated how good they were and what made them the best in their fields.
Yes. And it's so important because sometimes, I mean, I see a lot of people that use us for their events, just our registration platform, and they have amazing events, but if, like you said, their marketing does not align, it like hurts me. I'm like, you guys are so cool, but no one knows. Yeah.
No one knows. Like you can have the most, it actually makes me think, right? There is this episode of The Golden Girls, short little tangent, but like they decide to create a pizza knish stand at the boardwalk, and they're absolutely amazing. And Sophia has the best recipe ever because she's from Sicily, and this is the most fantastic thing. But they're standing there and everybody is playing in the water at the beach. And the other three girls are standing there at the stand and they have no customers. And Rose makes this comment that like, it doesn't matter, how good your product is if no one knows about you.
Yeah.
So Sophia walks down to the water and starts screaming, "Shark, shark." And of course, everyone comes running. But like, it's really true. You can do the most amazing things. And you have to tell people if they are going to hire you or they are going to actually find you, which is a lot of the case with so much of the world is dominated by the internet. Right.
Yep.
And the added sales benefit to that is that immediately when you're able to demonstrate what makes you so cool and what makes like really shows what you're good at, you're going to also automatically lead qualify people so that they know, oh, okay, I see the caliber of this event. Now you can charge accordingly, or there's no way I'm going to be able to afford this type of company because of what they're doing. So it really has like all of that marketing ties into the sales and business side of it if you do it effectively.
Yeah, exactly. And so one of my first questions for you is regarding like traits for events. What traits would you say are one of the most important for events to have that want to be successful or that you've seen while you've been in the industry?
Oh, absolutely. So I think number one is it's the exact same thing that comes with starting any business. And that is clear picture as to who your ideal client, or in an events case, who is your ideal attendee that's coming. Because everything needs to be built for them, right? So if you're doing an internal event, maybe these people are required to show up. Okay. Well, getting a butt in a seat and eyes and brains that are paying attention are two different things, right? So if you're trying to sell tickets, you want to attract a specific type of person, because then that person not only sees, oh my gosh, this is for me, they buy the ticket, they show up, and then they also continue to engage. They post content on social media. They sign up for the next time you have an event. They have those experiences that make them come back for more. Which again, business side, reoccurring revenue for that event. And I think now we're kind of seeing, especially the past couple of years, with so much going to virtual, it's been a lot harder to gauge success, right? Because previously it was, everyone looks like we're having fun, or we had a lot of tickets that were sold. You can literally walk into an in-person event and look around. Is everyone like, mopey and grumpy, or are they really having a good time? Do we see smiles? Do we see connections? And all of that was taken away. So you have to look, and now Zoom fatigue, virtual fatigue in general. I mean, I'll admit my whole business is digital and I get so tired of staring at computer screens. So if I'm going to sign up for one, how are you going to make sure that I stay engaged? And a lot of it all starts with truly understanding who is that ideal person so you can create and market an immersive experience around it to them.
Yeah, that is the trick, right? Because most people are working remote now, a big percentage of us. So it's like, how are you going to keep us captivated or willing to go to an event that's online, whether it's a virtual event or a webinar? I know those are completely different, but it's hard to convince me to get off my work day and then sit down and watch an event on a screen for another like few more hours. So
yeah, I mean, a screen is a screen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Whether you're doing it for email, and even people, right? Let's say we get tired of this. Like the biggest, the big jokes I see all over Instagram is like, we leave our computer, we go sit down at our sofa to watch a TV screen while we look down at our phones, the little screen.
Oh yeah.
But also, what does that show? If you're sitting there scrolling through Instagram, that TV content is not keeping you engaged enough.
Mm-hmm.
But what are the goofy memes, the dog videos, the reels, or just my reels that show up on Instagram. Because Instagram serves me reels of dogs doing ridiculous things because it knows these are things you like, you engage with them. So yeah, I'm going to keep giving you more of them.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me a lot happier.
Yeah.
So the more you can, follow an algorithm path in that way and find out like, what is it that these people really value? You'll keep them engaged.
Yeah.
And I even have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying part of like for engagement, I feel like it's changed so much thanks to social media and all these quick things we're getting in our face that it's becoming harder and harder to keep the engagement going because at least for me, like my brain is now wired to be like, okay, get to the point, learned it, next. Yeah.
Well, I think it's even, I would challenge to say that even it's not that your brain has gotten to that point. It's that your brain's always been there because we take in neurostatistics. I don't remember off the top of my head, but like an insane amount of sensory overload all day.
Yeah.
It's just that now when all of that sensory overload was in one space that we were in all the time, aka our houses, it became so much more clear that we have got to cut out the crap that is not serving us.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, it's harder to do, but I talked to a client about this the other day, in 2019, an hour-long webinar was pretty much par for the course, like 45 minutes of content, 15 minutes of Q&A and engagement. Now, zero ways I'm signing up for something that long. Zero.
Exactly.
Even if I'm going to or producing virtual events and you look at this, it's like, okay, well, we can have a one-day virtual event. If you're doing multiple days, you are stretching the patience and attention span of these people. So you got to make sure you're really knocking it out of the park on day 2. But even so, the sessions, 20 minutes tops, 30 minutes with Q&A involved in that, because people have other things they want to do. It's no longer, well, let me learn as much as I can. It's, tell me the main message that I need to get so that I can digest it and then move on to the next thing, or digest it and actually start to apply it. Right? Like it's not, in general, right? It's not about the number of hours that you work. It's how effective those hours are that you are working on it.
Yes. What information you're taking away, how much information.
Yeah.
And
like our brains can only process so much for so long. And then we hit a wall and it's like, you could talk to me about all the dogs in the world. I won't remember what their different breeds are or their names. Cause it's just, okay, it's another cute dog. Yeah. It's another piece of information.
Yeah. It's definitely tricky, but, so when you have whether virtual events versus in-person events, should you market or treat your virtual attendees different from your in-person ones?
Yes, because yes,
it's a different beast.
It does make sense, but they are engaging in 2 completely different ways. And if you're doing this in what I will say is the most effective manner, you're really designing 2 different events. Because even if it is a hybrid event, right? So there is some people that will be in person, face-to-face in a room, and others are going to be in virtual.
Yeah.
Well, there are going to be little touches, just like, you would add rental furniture and you would add catering in person. Well, the people in virtual are not going to get that. So the people in virtual need other things, other little add-ons to their experience that are tailored to them that the in-person don't get.
Mm-hmm.
And, to your point earlier, like if I'm trying to get people to sign up for the virtual event, what can I tell them? What can I offer? What experience can I create that will convince them that they should spend an additional day with me or hour working with me at this event instead of going to their kid's soccer game or working on that next proposal for a client or designing something for one of their clients? What can I do to convince them to spend their time with me instead of the 10,000 other things that are surrounding them at home?
Yeah.
Like when you're trying to market an in-person element to that event, you have the inherent things they're going to experience. Once they're there, you're competing really just against their phone most of the time, right? Just their phone pinging them for texts or emails, but not the physical intrusions that we get when we're in our virtual environments. So you really need to design them and make sure you're giving, what is that solid value proposition for why someone should pay to show up in person? There's travel, commuting, anything else. And then what is the value proposition for the person in virtual?
Yeah.
And some of the content may overlap, but they're showing up in two completely different ways. And the more you can tailor your messaging to that, the more you're going to resonate and create an emotional tie with that person.
So if I was hosting a hybrid event, you would recommend marketing not completely different. Like you said, it's going to overlap, but you're pretty much hosting two different events in a way.
Yeah. You're designing two events because it's also like if, and I knew people, and I've been engaged with a lot of these where I was part of the virtual component or I was part of the in-person component. There's different reasons to do each side, right? So you need to, everything comes back to like, what is the value proposition for either? And it may turn out that I am someone who prefers face-to-face is where I know I can focus. So if I want to go to this event, if I want to get something from this educational event, I know as Channing, I need to show up in person because my attention span at home is 0.
Yep.
Right.
That's
but you may have, so there you go. You're like, I know this.
I have to see it.
The marketing that company would have is demonstrating. So for those of you who have a difficult time turning off the distractions and all these other things, here's the reason to show up in person.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of you, they're like, yep, I know how to close my door and I turn off all the things and I get someone else to deal with the dogs and the babies and all the other stuff. I do better at home because I like the flexibility. I can do 2 hours of a session and then I can pick up my kids from school. And then I can come back and do a 1-hour session while, they're playing in a neighbor's house. So maybe I like the flexibility, but you like this. Understanding each one of us helps to better clarify who's going to go where, right? We're both going to get education and we're probably going to get education that overlaps.
Yeah.
But the reason for you to show up in person is because the event marketer understands you're not going to really absorb all of it if you don't.
Yeah.
And that there's the other person of you like to have flexibility, then you're a good fit for the virtual side.
Yeah, that's a good point because I think they're realizing it now as we're doing more and more hybrid and virtual events. But at least in the beginning, you didn't realize that now we have to change our whole strategy and market to a whole different set of people because, there's a new element to events. And I wanted to...
I think in general, people have changed. I was going to say also, I think in general, we have changed. Let's say that events, for whatever reason, were the exact same now as they were in 2019. And everything just was like, no, COVID no longer a thing. Everyone is in person. We're done with this virtual business. The formats could even be the same, which they shouldn't be, but in this theoretical world, they could. But we as humans and as a society have changed in the past 2 years. Like, hands down,
100%.
We are different because of what we've gone through.
100%.
So the marketing and the design need to adapt to the way we think now.
Yes. And that's what I was going to kind of switch over to my next point is I wanted to talk to you about your background with the crisis communication planning before we wrap it up. because I know you specialize in that. And I was going to say that's a great trade to have, since the last few years have been nothing but a giant crisis, especially with events.
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, I never would have thought as myself as someone who like is a pro with crisis communication. What I am
now
though, is really good at cutting. Well, now I have put an industry term on what I will very casually say is like, I know how to cut through the crap that's unneeded and get to the point.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so here's the situation. And this really is also like, let me think 5 steps ahead. What are the things that could go wrong? Are we prepared to handle them?
Mm-hmm.
I think event professionals are really amazing at this when it comes to their events. When it comes to designing and producing an event, you think about, well, what if this caterer doesn't show up? What if this happens? How are we going to handle if it rains and it's an outdoor event? Naturally thinking about production and execution elements of plan B and plan C. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, what I have seen happen more times than I wish it would is the communication side of it is not thought of. What the pandemic then has brought into light is that, let's say you're marketing an in-person event now, but there's a potential, even if it's teeny tiny, there is a potential that it will have to switch to hybrid, or that it will have to switch to virtual because God forbid something happens with these various different variants and that company no longer feels comfortable doing it in person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing I can say is it's like these 2 very simple concepts, right? Marketing does not have to be fully transparent. Okay, whatever you are marketing, it needs to be honest. It needs to be accurate. You need to tell them what the experience is going to be like. But you do not have to explain every single detail in the decision-making behind it, right? It's a lot of things. However, the second something changes that affects the attendee's experience based on what you sold them, you need to be 150% transparent. I have watched an event try to put a PR spin. They sold one experience in a specific city, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is going to be amazing. And they kept talking about all of these wonderful in-person elements and how engaged we were going to be with the city. And then the entire venue, location, all of those elements went away.
Oh no.
No. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Okay, this is not what you sold. Let's see what they say about it. Instead of being upfront with being like, hey, we hit some government and logistical issues with this, and this is why we needed to make these changes. And we realize it sucks and is disappointing, but this is the best that we're able to get. And so we're trying to still give you the best experience we can. That is what they should have done, was just been transparent. They hit walls they couldn't fix. Now, granted, they should have seen these coming a mile away, but nonetheless, if they were transparent enough about it, it would have been one thing. Instead, they decided to be like, we're decided to make this more like a local event than a destination event.
Oh no.
But the whole reason people were going is because it was a destination.
Yeah, I would be mad.
Like that was the appeal. So they tried to put this whole, it's positive, it's wonderful. And everybody, the Facebook page blew up with negativity. The number of shares of their message, the amount of anger.
Oh my gosh.
Then they went further down the bad rabbit hole and decided to start deleting and hiding comments they didn't like.
No.
Right? Like all of this is making you cringe, right?
Yes. Oh,
so
no.
It is, and the lessons to learn from this type of event and huge mistake are that if they were just upfront, right? If you are upfront when things changed, more people will attendees be disappointed? Absolutely. Because they bought into a certain experience, but people are more willing to forgive you or to look for another option or to at least be understanding if you don't try to lie to them, right? Or if you don't try to turn it, like just be upfront. We are still in a global pandemic. Things are weird. Every state has different regulations on this. Travel can't decide what is allowed and what's not allowed. Like things are changing. And that's assuming we're not even talking about international attendees, right? So like if you are upfront and transparent about it, People may be disappointed, but they will not go on a rampage that can hurt your brand image overall.
Yeah.
If you try to hide things when they change, right, or put a PR spin on it, so to speak, one, people are pretty smart in general, and a crowd in particular can put together the pieces of what is not being said relatively fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is the crowd or the attendees or everyone who's hiding behind their keyboard is telling the narrative for you rather than you controlling the story.
And they're
you
just
let other people
off.
Yep, exactly. And they're pissed off and they're angry.
Yes.
And the result from that is that your brain is getting hurt because it's getting flooded with negative things, which is what no one wants.
Yeah.
Things are then getting shared off that page or to others by private accounts that you cannot track. So the message is actually going out even wider. And from the business perspective in the end, these people are not going to buy from you ever again.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas if you're transparent and things change, maybe you lose some money up front, or maybe they're disappointed and they get upset, but it doesn't go on for days and weeks and then hurt you for future years.
Yes.
So you don't have to give every detail up front in your marketing, right? You want to always make sure that whatever the experience you are marketing is accurate. But if something changes after they've bought, you need to be fully transparent. Then it's like, yes, all cards on the table. Don't lie to people. It is a whole lot harder to clean up from a mess when you've gone down the rabbit hole than just explaining why things changed.
Would you recommend specifically because, I mean, we, like you said, you don't know if a new variant might pop up that we go back into lockdown. Knock on wood.
Fingers crossed. It doesn't, yeah.
Would you recommend having transparency before that even happens? Like maybe on the page saying, hey, there is potential.
I think an overall kind of a basic COVID related message is beneficial.
Yeah.
People we're becoming, I think, a society a little more immune to them, depending on where you live and what your, everyday lifestyle in your city is like. But I think in general, we're knowing that like, okay, we moved to a point, lots of people are vaccinated. Yes, it's still real. It does not feel the same threat to our individual health as it did a year ago. If we choose to go to a restaurant or a concert, we're taking a risk. But I do think it is always a nice way. And I'm sure somebody's legal team will have a wonderful consult on this. And I highly recommend going to them. But just having something just like other terms and conditions before someone buys, when they have to agree to that, just saying that like, we're doing our best to do all the things. This is a cover event. If anything should have to change, you will hear immediate communication from us. This is the world we live in now. I think most people probably still check the box and be like, yep, understood.
Yeah, and I think they know.
Yeah, they know. But the event team always has a plan for if they need to change. Mm-hmm. Just got to keep the communications people, whoever that is the PR person, or if it is a marketing coordinator, or if it's an event marketer, whoever is in charge of putting words and videos into the public on behalf of your event, they need to be looped in on all of those changes or even the potential of them so that they can start getting the messaging ready. Because if it changes, they need to be able to pull the trigger on that quickly. Time is not your friend in a situation like that. You need to be Johnny on the spot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a cringy story.
Oh my gosh, I was literally just sitting there on Facebook and I was just watching fires explode. Because all I also saw was every person who was angry and who wasn't getting a response or who realized that their comments were deleted. I was like, all I saw was just money being lit on fire because the company did not address it for 5 days.
Oh,
5 days. And even then, let me add one more tip to this. If you do run into a situation you need to change, the very first people you contact are your top sponsors. They have the most skin in the game and the most money to be affected here. Followed up by the people who already bought tickets and or confirmed RSVP yes if it's a complimentary event.
Yeah, then because that's 5 days of being like, what? Hello?
It's 5 days of setting your business on fire.
Yeah.
Like, goodness me. Even if you were to do it immediately, I still say, if people have trusted you to either give you money in a sponsorship or give you their money to attend an event or even just their email address, you talk to them first. And then once they are known about this, the change, the incentive, whatever, email marketing, marketing concept in general, you launch a new campaign, people who trust you with their money and their email get the info first, then it goes out on social media after. Because not everyone is on social every single day, right? Or at all. And you got to make sure you get that message out to the ones who bought into you in some form or fashion first. And followers don't count for that yet.
Yeah. And that's a good story. Unfortunately, it's a very unfortunate story, but life lessons there. And
yes. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's not the only company I've seen do it. It was just one of the most recent where I was sitting there watching them light money on fire. Because future events, I'm like, that's all it is. If you upset people this one event, you're not going to get them back for the next one. So like when you're thinking about these communications, things have to change. Okay. Think about that long-term sales game. Is this experience going to be good enough for them to want to come back next time or to the next event I produce or to the next one that I am working on, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
You got to think about that long-term recurring revenue in all of the communications and marketing you're putting out there.
Yeah.
Assuming we're not talking, of course, about we're talking about ticketing and things like this. So it's not none of the social events that will only happen, one time in a life, God willing. So
yeah. You don't want to be the next fire festival and have a documentary about you. And no.
And it's all because hey, I get it. People want to make money. I am on board with that.
Yeah.
I have my own business. I want to make money too. But I don't want to do it at the expense of being a horrible human. Come on now.
Yeah.
It's nice. Be nice to people. Be upfront about the realities of what you can and cannot do. Everyone works together more in the long run. Because you get not just the first contract, but you get the next one because you deliver on what you said you would.
Yeah.
And when you do that, again, more money comes down the line. It's the longer business play.
Yeah. And like you said, transparency would be key in all of this because once you start digging a little hole, then you got to keep digging and
oh, it does. It just gets worse. It just gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
And cringeworthy. And even now, I know this company that I was talking about, but I am sharing this story with how many other people? I guarantee there are other people that are going to hear this and recognize it.
Yeah.
And it's that's a lot. This is super unfortunate to have damaged a brand when it could have so easily been fixed by just being honest.
Yeah.
Be upfront and honest.
Yeah. It's a simple concept, but I can see it being a little scary, but you just got to do it. People are understanding. People are understanding.
Right. Well, and even if you don't, let's say you don't think people are understanding at all, it's a temporary anger, not a ongoing firestorm. Because then once one person, just the concept, you want people to start engaging with a Q&A session. All it usually takes is one or two people to raise their hand, and then other people start to jump up. But people don't want to be the first. Well, the same is true when it is lighting a brand on fire. Once one person says something truly honest and negative or voices their frustration in a public forum, that match is lit and it spreads quickly. And other people will be like, oh my God, I was feeling that same thing. And then it goes on and on and on.
Yep.
It's cautionary tale, friends. Just be transparent.
Yeah.
If things start to go wrong, be transparent. It will save you so much in the long run.
Yeah. That's a good tip. And but so I'll wrap it up because I've already taken a lot of your time and you've given us so much great information and a great story to learn a valuable lesson from. Is there anything else you would want to add or say to our viewers, or maybe any other tips moving forward for event planners out there before we leave?
Yeah, I mean, I have one other quick thing here, and this is just the DCM communications concept in general, is
Yes.
that marketing does not have to be complicated in order for it to be effective. Okay, if you have a 20-person plus marketing team, whether for your event or for your company, by all means, do all the things that are out there as recommendations, right? Do the blogging, do the email, do, ads, do social media management on a regular basis, like all the things.
Yes.
But the reality is that is not the case for most people, particularly also those in the event industry. Even some of the biggest, companies don't have 20 people just for marketing. So don't get caught up with doing all the things. Find the few channels that are the most effective for you and do those and forget the rest of it, right? You don't have to have 25 layers to every marketing campaign in order for it to work.
That's a
clear,
good because
to the point.
Yeah, marketing, if you stand back and actually look at it and you're like, oh, I need to do this and this and everyone's on here. Yeah, it can be very overwhelming, but that's a good point.
Right. It is. And the more you get overwhelmed by it, it really does bring into those mental blocks. And then the creativity is going to get stifled or the effectiveness of the copy is not there. Right.
Yeah.
So marketing does not have to be complicated in order to be effective. Does not mean that it is always the easiest thing ever to create, but it doesn't need to be overly complicated, right? Focus on your main message, talking to your ideal client only, forget all the crap.
Yeah. And if you don't know what you're doing, that's when you outsource and you have people.
Exactly. And that's when you call me and be like,
that's when you call you.
I need to do, I keep hearing 10,000 things. What do I do?
Yeah.
Okay. I will narrow that down, look at all your analytics, talk to you about what's worked. Here are the things you can do. I can teach you how to do them effectively, or my team and I will take it off your hands and we'll do it for you.
Yeah.
But I'm not saving babies. Okay. I can teach you how to do these things if you have a desire to learn.
Yeah.
If not, I'll happily do it for you. Not a problem.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's nice to just be like, here you go. You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have clients that I have clients that have both sides of it, right? Some that are like, no, I can do this. I just have no idea where to start. Great. I've done marketing in almost 20 years. I can teach you how to do these things. We're going to go step by step. You'll get homework so you know exactly what to do over the next week, 2 weeks, whatever the case may be. And then when you have questions, you let me know.
That's
and others are like, yeah, I know I need to do email marketing, but I really don't like it. Sure. Yeah. Throw money at that problem, my friend. I got you. We'll handle it.
Yeah, that's nice to kind of offer both worlds, because I know a lot of people do actually want to learn moving forward and want to understand what's happening, but don't know where to start.
Yeah. And that's one of those that I really, to be honest, that is more of my personal passion, is teaching people how to do it. Because again, this is not saving babies. This is not brain surgery. You just have to be taught in the way that's going to be the most effective for how your brain processes information. And I have a variety of clients that some are different. They like video tutorials and that's what they get. Others want screen share. Some want me to actually do everything in writing for them. Some need to watch our videos after I've gone through the lesson and look at that same lesson 4 times before it fits in.
Yeah.
We find the way that they're able to process it the best so that you can learn it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's always interesting how different people can process their information. You just get done talking to one person, they got it and they're good. And then you have the other person, which is like me. I'm super visual and I'm like, I need to see this laid out. So it's interesting.
Which I get that. And I am that client as well for my accountant, to be honest, right? My financial planner, we talk about things and I'm like, no, I need you to go slower, please. And I need to write out these numbers so I can clearly see it.
Yeah. And
it's just
I'm just learning.
Yeah. It's finding the right. Exactly. But you got to find the right fit. And I'm one of those strange people who also reads books about how the brain processes and neurology and how we're built, because I'm fascinated by it. And I just apply it to business in a way that makes learning more effective for people. So
that is nice. Most people do not do that or have the patience to do that. So
well, I'm very aware of what I am good at and also where my passion is. And I am also aware of what I am not great at, which is why I have a team of contractors that assist, and they are experts in various fields. And so, sure, my company offers a variety of services, But Channing Muller offers a very narrow scope of services. I do the same thing. I need other stuff. I'm like, yep, I'm going to throw money at that person because she is great at it and she will handle this and it will be exactly what my clients need. Boom. Welcome to the team.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just easier. You got to do it. But
it is. I think it's important to know where our strengths are so we can really grow the most effective businesses and also have fun. Like no one, especially if someone has their own event business, like you do not go into business to be miserable every day. So find people who can fill in those other skill sets of things that you don't love doing and or are not great at. And it will help you grow much more effectively.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you again for taking your time out to talk to me and just sharing your experience and advice for everyone listening. I think it's going to be really helpful.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun, a very intellectually stimulating conversation.
Yay.